How's it going, everyone? This is a video about Payroll. It's a payroll in Excel application. It does payroll for small businesses. It's all in Microsoft Excel. And if you've purchased one of these template files from me, or you would like to learn how they work, this is going to be an extensive, sort of a long video about how to enter in all the data into a file like this and what this file can do. So let us begin. Let's imagine you have a small business. Let's imagine you have this small business in the state of Ohio. Let's imagine that you pay people in this business every week. Keep in mind, all those things are variable. You could pay them over any period of time. You could have your business in any state or multiple states, and you could have many more than 10 employees. This file can handle everything, but let's talk about this scenario right now to show you how this works. So, first sheet is called the employee info sheet. This is where you enter information about your employee. It's not necessarily related to each weekly paycheck, but it's related to the employee as a whole and information about that employee. I've already filled in some for myself, but we're going to add a second employee right here. I always use Dave Chappelle when I am talking about Ohio because I believe he lives there. So you enter in a name. You can enter a social security number. You can leave that social security number blank if you don't want to leave it in this file all the time, or just put, the last 4 digits in there. You can do that. Here's a question about whether or not you're using an old W-4 from 2020, or if you're going to use one of the new, an old W-4 from before 2020. Yes or no, how many exemptions were on that old W-4? If you're using an old W-4, if it's not a new employee, you'd put the exemptions there, or allowances. Or if you are using a new employee, you're going to have a question, well, did the employee fill out a W-4 for 2020? How about yes? How about yes, they did? If they did, you're not going to fill out this column. But if they did not fill out a new W-4 for W-2020, you are going to need to put something here. So keep that in mind. It tells you what to do. Is this person married? Yes or no? Actually, Dave Chappelle is married. State allowances, this is for Ohio. That's going to be on your Ohio W-4 equivalent. I think he's got like a wife and 2 kids, so let's go with 3 state allowances. Now here we have to do with a city. Certain cities in Ohio have their own city tax. You're going to have to look this up on your own because there are many different cities and counties. I know that, for example, I think Cuyahoga Falls maybe is at 2%. I'm not sure if that's where he lives, but you need to put in the local tax rate, which would be online. You'll have to know for your own county or your own city in Ohio, so you'll have to look that up. Next, because the person filled out a 2020 W-4, this area needs to be filled in. What's their filing status on their new 2020 W-4? Do they have any amounts listed in these questions on 4A, 4B, or any dependents? That's over here in the 2020 W-4. This is a simulation of the actual W-4 form. So they'd fill out all this. I'm not going to go in depth on this in this video, but that's what these questions are about. You have to answer these 2 at least. It wants you to know whether or not they checked the box in line 2C, yes or no, and what their status is. Once you got that done, basically you have everything mandatory that you need to have filled in on this sheet. You can add some of this other information for your own benefit, and it'll filter onto things like the pay stub if you want to put their address or their hire date. But generally, that's all you're going to need to get this payroll file to start working. Next, after you've got the information in, usually most people go to the daily entry sheet. The daily entry sheet is where you're going to put in your employees' hours every single day, if you'd like to. So when you click on these cells, the light blue cells are areas where you can enter stuff in. The dark cells are formulas, and you don't want to touch them. This is a formula here. You don't want to mess with this. Anything dark cells, you don't want to override those formulas unless you really know what you're doing and you're doing it for a purpose. But generally, you're not going to do that at all. So you're just going to click the name. You're going to put a date in here, right? And you're going to put a number of hours that the person worked. The file that this person is for, they also have something where they have billable hours. Some of the hours that people work are billable hours, and there's a bonus attached to them. So I added a column here for, if they worked 8 hours, but maybe only 4 of them were billable hours, you would put the billable hours here. And I'll show you how that ties into the pay stub and what these billable hours are related to in a second. But that you can put regular hours, OT hours, holiday hours, vacation hours. These are all paid hours, and this is one for billable hours. This stuff over here for project type tips and everything, I don't think it's used in the current example. I've gone over it in some other videos, but it allows you to pay your employees a few different ways. But we'll move on from that and not really go over that in this video. Next, we have the pay period record sheet. So this is the crux of the file. This is where all the big formulas are and all the pay period record information is for every single employee at every single pay period. The beautiful thing about this is you do not need to see all of this information. Most of these are formulas that you never need to look at and never need to touch. So what I generally do is I hide most of them, but I wanted to show in this video how many there are and which ones we like to hide. Same philosophy about the dark colors and the light colors. If there's a dark colored background fill, it's a formula and you generally don't need to do anything. Don't need to fill it out. So most of this stuff can all be hidden. I'm going to leave a little bit open. I'm going to leave net pay open. I'm going to leave state tax open. I'm going to leave local tax open. I'm going to leave federal tax open. And everything else I'm going to close out and hide for you. Now we're going to go through the pay period record. So this is something that's a little easier to look at. Not as many things going on. There's still a lot going on here, but not as many as you would think. So what are areas where you need to enter information in? Well, a lot of times what people do is they look at the current pay period or the pay period through this filter here under week ending. So let's just look at just the first pay period in January here, January 6th. And you can see that our 2 employees are here. These are their payroll records. And you start to look at these and answer these questions. Is there any additional federal or state tax withheld? Let's say we have an additional $10 federal and additional 5 state that this person wants out. How many regular hours do they have? This is all formulas. You don't have to do anything here, okay? This stuff all came from this other sheet, the daily entry sheet, automatically when you entered it in here. So you don't have to do anything. You just look and make sure it's right. Were there 48 hours for the period? Any overtime? Let's pretend that there are some overtime hours here. Right? Put overtime hours, boom, the overtime hours automatically show up. Great. This person has billable hours. They get $10 an hour extra for all those billable hours that we put right here. This automatically figures out how much that's going to be. Here we have an hourly rate. Let's see, Dave Chappelle doesn't have anything for that period. Let me show you what happens when Dave Chappelle's date period is related to this pay period. Dave Chappelle now has 8 hours in this pay period. You can see that this hourly rate over here turned red. It's telling you need to put an hourly rate in for this person. Okay, that's going to help. So that shows up in red when you need to put an hourly rate in. Does this person have any other additional bonus? Let's say we give them $110 additional bonus. Are there any garnishments, child support, stuff like that? Any reimbursements where they reimburse for some expense that's not taxable? What's the check number of this pay stub, of this paycheck? Put that there. There's a bunch of other things for 401k, health insurance, insurance contribution, life insurance, all these other things that could affect pay. We're going to leave them all blank for now. And then you have all of your resulting information, how much tax was withheld, what the net pay is. Okay, so this is where you enter in all your information. You do not ever want to sort this. You never want to sort. You only want to use the filters. Everything's in an order here. So you can use the filters and filter out things, but you don't want to sort. So what you've done is you've entered in payroll information. And now you have a pay stub. And it's very easy in the pay stub just to change the name up top and change the pay period right here, right? And everything's going to change automatically. So for that first pay stub, we can see that this is the amount. Ends up being 1,045 gross. The net paycheck's 826 bucks. This is where all the money went, state, city, everything. And your pay stubs are that easy. You can print them. You can even line this up and print this on a check and have this whole thing print on a paper check for you if you don't want to use direct deposit, but I would recommend using direct deposit or EFT. Now, so that's your pay stub. Here are some of your reports. There's a quarterly 941 report that you need to file with the feds. All you have to do is choose the quarter and everything's going to fill in automatically. If you don't want to choose the quarter and you want to look at just 1 month, you can choose just 1 month and you're going to get just 1 month. If you don't want to look at a month and you just want to choose a pay period, you can choose just 1 pay period and you're going to get just 1 pay period. And everything else changes over here. You get to see a lot of detail about breakdown of all the expenses for your employees right here. Then you've got your Ohio reports, same thing. What do you owe for Ohio? choose a quarter, or choose a pay period, or choose a month. You get your report. Also throws in your city taxes and what you owe by month right there. You have some other pivots where you can refresh these pivots and they'll show you more detailed information. This can be manufactured to present any information you want that's in here. So these are just reporting pivots that you can shrink and collapse and mess around with. That's a whole other video. There's a W-2. The W-2, you choose the name, and it's going to automatically fill in the information so that you can submit your W-2s online to Business Services Online, which is the Social Security website at the end of the year. And that is about it. 10 minutes in. That's not too bad. So that's how you enter in data. That's how you look at the reports. That is basically the crux of how this works. And it's totally malleable and changeable. And if you ever need to pay people in a different way or update your pay stub, it's actually not that difficult to do. And you can maintain cumulative records for the year that are accurate. So there you go. Happy payrolling. If you're interested, go to KentBraverman.com. I have payroll files for every pay period and almost every state. I haven't done every state yet, but if you have a request for a state that I haven't done, I will do it for you. I've done the Virgin Islands. I've done the Bahamas. I will do payroll formulas for you. That's what I do. So we're out, and happy payrolling.